attendance, councillors. We have Councillor O'Neill on the phone, and I'll just adjourn the meeting waiting for some papers. Okay, we will keep going with the meeting. Moving on to confirmation of minutes.
Just one edit from Councillor Guthrie for the 9th of September.
Okay, do we have anyone to move on confirming the minutes?
What was the edit?
Oh, it was just a pronoun.
Just a pronoun, a he and a she.
Oh, that's a good teacher.
Councillor Taylor.
That the minutes of the open meeting held on the 9th of September 2020 be confirmed.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor McMullen, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. We have we've also got the special meeting on the 16th of September at 3 p.m. Do we have anyone to move on those minutes? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that the minutes of the special meeting held on the 16th of September 2020 be confirmed.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. If there is no other minutes, we'll move on to declarations of conflict of interest. Oh, okay, Councillor Taylor.
I, Councillor Wendy Taylor, consent to conflict of interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175D and E for agenda item LC10 with the subject heading Marine Southern Lake Representative for Australian Livestock Markets Association Incorporated membership. The person's interest arises because of my relationship with another person. The name of the other person is Kylie Taylor. The nature of my relationship with this person is she's my daughter. The nature of the other person's interest in the matter is Kylie works for the contractor AAM. I will be dealing with this matter by leaving the room while the matter is discussed in another time.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Taylor. Okay, Councillor Guthrie.
I, Councillor Julie Guthrie, declare that I have a material personal interest as defined by the Local Government Act of 2009, Section 175B for agenda item LC11 with the subject heading Hey Roma Dam. The name of the person is myself as a partner in a pastoral business, and I stand to gain a benefit or suffer a loss either directly or indirectly depending on the outcome of the consideration of the matter at the meeting. The nature of the relationship to the entity Australian Country Choice ACC is financial because of a sale of livestock last week to the company involved in this agenda item.
Okay. And how are you dealing with that?
In accordance with Section 175C2B of the Local Government Act of 2009, I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Okay. Any other conflicts? Councillor Ladd.
I, Councillor Ladbrook, declare that I have a conflict of interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175D and E of agenda item number LC1 with the subject heading Update of Matters Relating to an Unnamed Section of Road of Humphreys Road, because I am related to the people involved, and I will be dealing with the matter by leaving the room while the matter is being discussed or voted on. And the other one...
Sorry, Councillor Ladbrook, do you also have land in that area?
Yes, I do. Yep. So where do I put that I got land? Or?
We can just add that as part of the reason, where you said about related to the people involved. You can just
and have land in that area. Is that?
And will you benefit at all from this road matter? depending on council's consideration of the matter.
Not really.
Should
No, I
go to the
don't.
road.
Not their access.
It's not the access road.
That no benefit that
No.
will approved on
That I-
council's consideration.
Okay, do you have another one?
Okay, there, and I, councillor Ladbroke, declare that I have a conflict of interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, section 175D and E for the agenda item C12 with the subject heading Bass's Park Stables upgrade, because I am a committee member and I will be dealing with this matter by leaving the room while the matter is being discussed and voted upon.
Okay, any other conflicts? Councillor Hancock?
I, Councillor Joanne Hancock, declare that I have a material personal interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, section 175B for agenda item C6, with the subject heading Tender Bottle Tree Bulletin. The name of the person or entity who stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of the consideration of the matter at the meeting, is Surat Post and News Proprietary Limited. The nature of my relationship to the entity is owned by my husband Graham Hancock and my parents Paul and Rachel Paravicini. Describe how you or the person or the entity stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of council's consideration of this matter. Surat Post News Proprietary Limited, in regards to the postage component of the tender. In accordance with section 175C 2B of the Local Government Act 2009, I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. I, Councillor Joanne Hancock, declare that I have a material personal interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, section 175B for agenda item C9 with the subject heading Policy Review Rate Recovery. The name of the person or entity who stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of the consideration of the matter at the meeting, is Surat Post News Proprietary Limited. The nature of my relationship with the entity is that the entity is owned by my husband, Graham Hancock, and my parents, Paul and Rachel Paravicini. And describe how you, the person or other entity, stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of council's consideration of this matter. Surat Post and News Proprietary Limited, in regards to the postage component of the report. In accordance with section 175C 2B of the Local Government Act 2009, I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. I, Councillor Joanne Hancock, declare that I have a material personal interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, section 175B for agenda item LC11 with the subject heading Hey Roma Dam. The name of the person who stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of the consideration of the matter at the meeting, is Michael Hancock. This person, the nature of my relationship to this person is my son, and Michael is a manager of one of the ACC properties. So in accordance with section 175C 2B of the Local Government Act 2009, I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. Okay.
Councillor Burkett?
I, Councillor John Burkett, declare that I have a material personal interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, section 175B for agenda item C1 with the subject heading Bringa Heritage Group Incorporated, request to reshed at Bringa Heritage Museum. The name of the person who stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of the consideration of the matter at the meeting, is Gary Burkett. The nature of the relationship is the person is my parent. The person other than the entity stands to gain a benefit or suffer a loss, either directly or indirectly, depending on the outcome of council's consideration, is my father's on the Bringa Heritage Group Committee. In accordance with section 175C 2B of the Local Government Act 2009, I will leave the room while the matter is discussed and voted on.
Right. Any other conflicts? Okay, I'll declare I, Councillor Tyson, I'll declare that I have a perceived conflict of interest as defined by Local Government Act 2009, section 175D and E for agenda item 12.1 with the subject heading Roma Admark Master Plan, because I'm the president of Roma District Junior Soccer Association Incorporated, and the Soccer Association has been mentioned as possibly possibly with other sporting groups, able to help with highlighting consultation at the council skate park opposite the Roma Hospital. And then I have determined that this personal interest is not sufficient, that it will lead me to make a decision on a matter that is contrary to the public interest, and I'll best perform my responsibility of serving the overall public interest of the whole of the government area, of the whole of the council area, by participating in discussions and voting on the matter. However, I acknowledge that the remaining councillors must now determine, pursuant to section 175E, brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 2009, A, whether I have a real conflict of interest in the matter or a perceived conflict of interest in the matter, and B, if so, whether I must leave the meeting while this matter is discussed or voted on, or 2, I may participate in the meeting in relation to the matter, including by voting on the matter. Councillor Hancock.
I move that Councillor Golder has a real perceived conflict of interest in the matter, and notwithstanding the conflict, Councillor Golder may participate in the matter, discuss and vote upon it.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Mullin. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0. Any other conflicts, councillors? Oh, it's in the late, is it? Yeah. Okay, so in the late. Thank you. Okay. Proceed. Thank you. Okay, I'd like to declare I, Councillor Tyson Golder, declare that I have a perceived conflict of interest as defined by the Local Government Act 2009, Section 175D and E for agenda item LC 13, with the subject heading Update on Flood Mitigation Matter. And I will be dealing with this matter by leaving the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. Any other? Oh, that's what it is, yeah. The personal interest arises because of my relationship with another person, which is my mother, Carmen Golder, and the matter relates to flood mitigation agreement that was signed back in 2014 and has since been concluded in the last term. And because of this agreement and compensation, I'll be dealing with this today by leaving the room while the matter is discussed and voted on. Okay, any others, councillors? Righto, we can get on to the agenda. Okay, page 39. Delegation of council powers to the Chief Executive Office under the Land Act 1995, Queensland, LANA. We have a mover. Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 under Section 257 of the Local Government Act 2009 resolve to delegate the exercise of powers contained in Schedule 1 of the Instruments of Delegation included in the officer's report to the Chief Executive Officer. These powers must be exercised subject to any limitations contained in Schedule 2 of the attached Instruments of Delegation for the Land Act 1994, Queensland, LANA. 2. All prior resolutions delegating the same powers to the Chief Executive Officer are repealed.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Thank you. 9-0. Page 61. Delegation of council powers to the Chief Executive Officer under the Mineral Resources Act 1989, Queensland, MIRA. Do we have a second? Councillor Burkett.
Move that Council 1 under Section 257 of the Local Government Act 2009 resolve to delegate the exercise of powers contained in Schedule 1 of the Instruments of Delegation included in the officer's report to the Chief Executive Officer. These powers must be exercised subject to any limitations contained in Schedule 2 of the attached Instruments of Delegation for the Mineral Resources Act 1989, Queensland, MIRA. And 2, all prior resolutions delegating the same powers to the Chief Executive Officer as repealed.
We have a second. Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Item 11.3, investment register as at 31st of August 2020. Councillor Taylor.
I move that the investment report as of the 31st of August 2020 be received and collected.
We have a second, Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Page 104. Roma Skate Parks Stakeholder Engagement Strategy.
How's it going?
Very good, thank you. Would you like to brief council on anything?
Council, just really quickly, we obviously discussed this project in length as part of the budget process. I did make it to bring back how we plan to consult with the community. So we outlined that in the officer's report there. So, that's essentially what we're considering today there. So the main consultation we've sort of got penciled in for about mid to late October, which will be some setups at the skate park. We'll try and do that. The consultant council we're working with have got started to prepare all of our documents to set up where people can come to the skate park and ask them their ideas of maybe what areas could do with improvement, and then some particular items around skate features and all of that. But it's actually very detailed. I've done a lot of work already to help create a discussion around it. It's not just what do you want, there's actually examples that either kids or parents could go and tick. So it just prompts a bit of discussion. So yeah, it's quite an exciting process, I think. And do we have any questions?
Oh, so this thing that we just got before Kevin, so that's what will go out to them?
So I just include that, council. As I said in the email, I've drafted this, and this is obviously an open, just so we can sort of let the community know what's happening. There's quite a fair bit of commercial information in the document that I've circulated to council directly, because that includes the pricing and all of that with the consultant. So that essentially won't go out, but there is documents that will flyers to sort of say we're having a session at the skate park, and that sort of thing, which we work with Kelly around where councils want to be in attendance and that sort of stuff. So yeah, that's the sort of the stakeholder group, we brainstormed the stakeholder group and are suggesting that that's how we undertake the engagement. So it's actually very wide reaching, but it is important that a site like a skate park definitely needs a buy-in from the property users, otherwise it becomes just an area and has a higher chance of vandalism, whereas if we can get some buy-in and really try and get the youth to own this space, they're probably more likely to treat it with the respect that it deserves.
Through you, Mr Mayor, if I could just ask Cameron, stakeholder groups, obviously I know what stakeholder groups are, but can, I don't know if it's out of order, but can we include one particular resident who lives behind there that has a lot to do with the cleaning up and commenting on the park? Helen Murphy, she works in one of the, not in the child services, but she's in one of those other, you know, to do with helping people with disabilities or something like that. And she's very involved in cleaning up needles and that sort of stuff on a fairly regular basis. I just...
Through you, Mr Mayor, but it's a very good point. Yeah. We do have an active CR on that matter, so it was every intention that we would touch base with that resident to discuss. I'd be in contact particularly with that resident around the upgrades to the softball at the park, because there was an interest in that. So a few matters have been raised about the skate park and that, so I'll take that on board. Thank you for that.
Also, with this, you know, obviously it's a sizable, I believe the community would say it is a sizable amount of money for a master plan. I'm wondering whether, when we're looking for whether there's in the motion or not, or whether when we're looking for someone to do it, whether we could see if we could get extra value by having a minor, maybe a visit to all of our 5, you know, areas in the Maranoa. We've already got one at Roma, to find out at the same time, because they've got a lot of knowledge, what future moves likely in. Obviously, the main focus is doing the master plan here, but if they're coming out anyway, whether they could, you know, go to Surrey and just call in and make a time where they could do a little bit of consultation about what the other areas need. And it could be wrapped up in the value of a contract for someone to come out. And whilst we're not doing it now, it might mean that we've got a heads up, because one of the criticisms is that, you know, not our council generally, but generally any council may build something that as you said, the users are not happy with. So maybe there's some value in being able to go to the other 4 communities while they've got a contract, whoever gets it, and actually get some feedback, for instance, for our next budget, what other areas need. It could be an extra grant, it could be something, and it could be wrapped up in the value in the allocation of the $20,000. So.
Does Surrey have a skate park?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, it's concrete. It's a really good one.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I would assume if that was possible, those other areas would be shovel ready should any grant opportunities come up down the track. And also things like, it's like things change in the sporting industry, and this is the new fad, and it might be a great park, but then they really would like this, and we could get that value out of doing this one, is that it doesn't take long to drive an hour each way and have a preset time to meet up with the kids, and I think they'd appreciate it. We might get some value for our next budgets, you know, to help in the other areas, if you know what I mean. Yep.
Just a question with that, through you, Mr Mayor, but these guys have already quoted on doing just a Roma one, so it wouldn't be within the 20,000, it would be on top of all they're out here, wouldn't it?
That's it. At this stage, Councillor Hancock, that price to do the master plan for the Roma skate park. But if council were obviously wanting to consider that, it could be just a third dot point, not making a commitment at this stage, but maybe something in conjunction with the project, discuss options with the contractor for additional consultation at other regions within the Maranoa in the future report that we brought to council. So I could say I'm talked to the contractor council, that they've got no issue with it. It's X dollars to do it, or I can do it within the 20, but we just have to give away a component of the original engagement and that sort of thing. So I think it's possible that it could be just a reporting in a fortnight's time to sort of say, I've had the discussion, we might just need to allocate an extra nominal amount to achieve that objective. So I think if council are interested in that, that would probably be the way to incorporate it, would be just I just repeat that for the purposes, if there is interest in conjunction with the project, discuss the option with the contractor.
Councillor Collins.
No, I was just going to suggest that the officer get it, it's already happened.
Through Mr Mayor, I've actually got a bit of an amendment as a suggestion amendment to the resolution as well.
Do you have any more questions or anything?
Just put in a minor edit in point 1
So councillors, what I was saying is just generally in business, if you've got somebody out here who's already doing a job and you say, look, can you do this extra? It's either a lot cheaper or they say, oh, well, we can do that at the same time. Because it's minor, I'm talking about even half an hour with kids and talk about what they want and get feedback, and also have a look at the park and give us their views. We're not talking about derailing what we're doing with the Roma scope.
And it might be the fact that they might future work, it's a good investment for them to do that all that extra time, because they might in turn get extra work. So good business sense.
Councillors, I suppose, to finish off that point, this consultant will be out a number of times. It'll be obviously use that initial consultation period to formulate some ideas, come back and find if there's something that's tangible that they can consider, and they'll be back out. So I actually think we've got possibly up to 3 options over the next, before now and Christmas to do that. So if we miss this first round, it definitely will be, so that's a positive.
And I reckon the sort of people that may be looking at consulting with this will be able to talk community directly. They'll know all the kids, so they'll say, we can hear it. Well received. Any other questions, councillors, or anything? Do we have anyone to move on the motion? Councillor Hancock.
I would like to move A, approve the stakeholder engagement plan for the Roma Skate Park Master Park as presented.
Is that number 1?
Yep, number 1, sorry. And then number 2, write to Mr Brian Halfmaster, informing him that a budget allocation of $20,000 has been approved to develop a master plan for the Roma Skate Park, and that council will be in contact to invite him to be part of the community consultation.
Do you mind if we just say advising rather than informing?
Yes.
It's just personal preference when we're doing minutes.
And 3, in conjunction with the project, discuss the option with the contractor of other projects across the region, with a further report presented to council for consideration at a future meeting in this regard.
Okay, we have a seconder, Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? Okay, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Item 13.1, development application for car wash at 92 Bowen Street, Roma. Do you have anything that you'd like to brief council on, or?
I'm happy to brief council if they need, or if they have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
So with the, Is this more like a detailing car wash rather than an automatic car wash?
Yeah, so as an example, the car wash that's across the road here with the manual hoses, it won't be anything like that. It'll be more of it'll be a smaller operation with 2 employees to sort of do inside and out. I don't think they use a lot of water, and so that'll be the extent of their operation. And it will
Through you, Mr Mayor, obviously the applicant's aware of all the conditions from start to finish.
well, it was available online, and I have been talking to the owners of the site and operators throughout this process.
Yeah.
So they're relatively aware of the conditions that will be imposed.
Okay, no other questions?
Yes, Mayor. So is this someone shifting an existing business to a new location, or is it an extra car wash?
Yes, so they're moving from an existing location to this location. Yeah.
I was just a bit worried to see the car wash.
Okay, do we have anyone to move? Councillor McMahon.
I've got a question.
Oh, you got a question? Sorry, Councillor O'Neill.
No worries. Through you, Mayor. Chris, just I couldn't identify in any of the conditions any restrictions on noise. Have I missed that?
There are nuisance conditions, Councillor O'Neill, which talk to noise. Just bear with me, I'll bring them up. So condition 30 talks about a list of this nuisance, and it includes noise, and then it references the relevant legislation that governs that.
Yeah, okay. Because just some feedback I've received, because they're operating already, aren't they?
I believe so, yes.
Yeah, just some feedback I've received is, particularly on a Saturday when they're starting at 7 a.m, they have music playing, and it is quite loud, is the feedback I've received. So I don't know where you could fit that into any conditions.
So if we do, if council resolves to approve it, and we do receive complaints about excess noise, we're happy to enforce that condition and ensure that they're within reasonable limits.
So that condition, through you again, Mayor, that condition of number 30, that is where you could address if there was a formal complaint?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Procedure of this. So I have time on under assessment. No problems there. So maybe this thing.
No, so it went through. Correct, yes. It is all done. So the 15 days, and there was no formal submission to see.
Just so they don't create.
So if council does resolve to approve it, then conditions will become effective, and then we can enforce them.
Right, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so council feedback to you and there were no submissions.
That's correct, yes.
Mr Mayor, I'm struggling to hear whomever's speaking.
Oh, sorry, it's Councillor Evans here. I was just extending what you were saying, that there were no submitters to there were no objections to it. So, you know, I was a little bit curious as to whether there are any submissions against the proposal, and it doesn't appear there are.
Councillor Hancock.
Mr Mayor, through you, a couple of questions to the CEO or to the office to the resolution. Can we, would it be possible to be approved subject to the following development conditions from 1 to 62, rather than reading out, because it's open to the public.
I think
I was just wondering if you could help us with
We can, yeah.
As I went to the list of conditions.
subject to the development conditions,
If there's conditions, then there's advice as well, so
Yeah, I got that, I was gonna,
listed development conditions and advice.
And general advice.
yes.
I've got a question. Can council change the hours on Saturday to 8 o'clock rather than 7 o'clock? Does the council have the power to do that?
If there's concerns, the hours that we've listed are called up in a planning scheme as an acceptable solution, but if council think that it needs to be stricter, then there's nothing to prevent it from being made in place. So if you want to change from 7 to 6, you just have to make a note. Sorry, 7 to 8.
No, sorry, on Saturday, what I'd be saying is, on Saturday, 8 to 6.
Sorry, 8 to 6.
Yeah, because, it is in a residential area, and it, I know on Saturday, it's generally a day off for a lot of people, so I think 8 would be more reasonable.
through you, Mr Mayor, though, my question is, we have a lot of other, conditions across the thing where you get, where 7 o'clock's the time, that's only you can mow your lawn at 7 o'clock, so it'll be a bit, the house next door, we mow on the lawn at 7 o'clock and we're stopping the car wash from starting at 8 o'clock, until 8 o'clock, I think 7 o'clock's in line with everything, isn't it, on public, am I out right?
Probably two.
Most things.
There's two things, like, you call mowers, and they call it a regulated device, and that's picked up by the environmental regulations in Condition 30. And there's also your planning scheme, which also outlines your hours there too, which governs the actual business hours.
That's what I'm saying, if we change this one, the other one, because other people in the area could be mowing their lawns or whatever other noise they make at 7 o'clock, but if we change it, right, that would be handicapping them, wouldn't it?
So with the regs, the environmental regs, it talks about the hours, but then also the noise limits.
Yeah.
So whilst it says you can start at 7 o'clock, it says you can't go over 70 dBA, 72 I think it is dBA, whereas our scheme dictates the hours of operation. As Chris said, council wanted to vary the hours, they can. So, but yeah, we do actually have in our planning scheme what the default hours are. It's up to council to let you vary it all, but yeah, you're right, you can mow your lawn at 7 o'clock, as long as you stay within those noise limits.
Because, to me, now's the time, council, to put that in, and I think they can ask for an extension, there's no problem, it's not a problem.
We could set some text along those lines to say, whatever reason they need to operate outside the approved hours, then they just have to revise or write to council and request that. Yeah, so we've done it for similar, we've done it for other applications. If that's something that.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about Saturday morning. I know, we don't have Sunday in there, which is good. Any other questions, councillors?
Just one through this, where do they operate from before?
They're operating from a residence.
Sorry, this is through you, Mr Mayor. Did they apply for another area?
No.
No, this was the third.
So the owner and the operator are two distinct entities. So the owner of the premises has applied for the detailing shop here, and the operator, as I understand it, is moving from a residence into this building.
Any other questions, councillors?
Sorry, Carol. Councillor Hancock, when she did the minor amendment to the subject to the listed, can you add the word development conditions, because the heading is development.
Who's changed that, Matt?
Oh, it was a suggestion.
So, yeah,
It was a
Because the
suggestion.
development conditions is the first heading, and the general advice is the second heading.
but I put my hand up as a mover.
Yeah, I haven't moved it,
No, no.
I just raised it.
Just to, because you didn't want to have to read out.
No, I realise.
Did you?
Yeah, no, mine.
Yeah, so, and then probably, are you okay, sorry, what's that? Right. Chris?
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah.
Okay,
Any other questions? Councillor McMullen, did you wish to move?
Yeah, Mr Mayor, I'll have to read that out. I'll move that the development application for a material change of use for a car wash at 92 Bowen Street, lot Roma, lot 1RP93927 be approved, subject to the listed development conditions and general advice. But that covers it.
Councillor McMullen, are you happy to have that amendment at 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, or are you not happy with that, to make that change?
I was putting it up as per the recommendation to be in guidelines with all our other businesses.
Okay, do we have a move for that motion?
I moved it.
Oh, sorry, seconder. Councillor Guthrie. Okay, is any opposition? I'll speak in opposition. Does the mover wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks, Mr Mayor.
I'll speak in opposition. Certainly agree with the development application, but I do believe that Saturday morning in a residential area is something that council would like, the community, I believe, would like council to take into consideration. And I believe, and as I've seen in the past, it's much better to actually get this sorted now rather than later. Also believe that it was 8 o'clock on Saturday morning, that they have ability to operate earlier with approval, but I do believe the argument to do with being able to use the lawnmower at 7 o'clock is up to a certain noise level, and I don't think it's the same as having someone starting a business and not having rules that are cautious to keep quiet enjoyment of the residents in that area. Also, the other thing is that you notice by 8 o'clock the general movement of cars and noise goes to a level that I don't believe it would be a problem, but at 7 can be quite arresting at certain on Saturday morning.
Mr Mayor, were you moving an amendment?
Oh, I asked the mover, and the mover wasn't happy with that, to do that.
But then you could seek a seconder to see if...
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah, right, well, I'm happy to move an amendment to approve, as past what was moved with the amendment to change the operating hours on Saturday to 8 AM to 6 PM, and all other hours the same. Do we have a seconder for that amendment?
Yes, I'm happy to second that.
Right, Councillor O'Neill seconds that. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? The amendment? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
All those against? That's carried 7-1, so that will be the motion now. Does anyone wish to speak for the motion?
Sorry, Mr Mayor, 7-1, I haven't got eyes. Who's out of the room?
8-1.
Sorry, 8-1. Yep. Sorry.
I'm assuming I didn't look, I was the only one against it.
Yeah, no, it was 8-1, sorry. I was forgetting about you, Councillor O'Neill. Sorry.
I did second it, Mayor.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so we've got a motion that's changed now. That is the motion. Does anyone wish to speak for or against before we go to the vote?
Mr Mayor, I'll speak against. I can't see the benefit in changing the hours on a Saturday and leaving the Sunday the same as it is, because Sunday's the day you sleep in, not Saturday.
They don't operate on Sunday.
They can.
No, Monday to Saturday.
Condition 57.
Saturday.
Department is not permitted.
I apologise, I think, yeah, okay.
Okay, anyone else wish to speak? You're right, Councillor Hancock.
Yeah, sorry, Mr Mayor, I saw the delivery of goods which had, and I just want to make sure we weren't contradicting ourselves, but it actually says that loading and unloading of goods must not occur outside the hours of 7 AM to 6 PM Monday to Friday and 8 AM to 5 PM on Saturday, so it actually works in.
Okay, no one else wishes to speak. We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
All those against, 8-1 call for a division. Okay, moving on to
Just so I'm clear, who voted against the substantive motion?
Councillor McMullen.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on from that, 13.2, do we have a page?
152.
Councillors, I'd say you all met Chris before, as councillors, actually met Jess, right? Just one of the planners, he's been with us 10 years, yeah. So obviously, the manager Danielle's away, so we've actually got Chris and Jess here today.
Okay, 13.2, development permit for material change use, extractive industry 5 to 100,000 tonnes, quarry, reference number 2020/272. I've got a question to the officers. I'm concerned about the operating hours, and I'm interested to know whether council has power to have noise at a reduced hours, say at 8 to 4 or something, and how we can tighten that up, because this is, I think, approximately 6 kilometres from Wallumbilla, and there's a lot of rural residential. And of course, when you have silent days, noise can go for kilometres and kilometres. So I'm just wondering whether council has the opportunity to put some change of noise, and also on Saturday have reduced hours for quiet enjoyment of the people around that Wallumbilla area.
So yeah, so similar to the one we just discussed, there are conditions around operating hours, which are restricting operations from 6 till 6 Monday to Saturday, and no operations on Sundays or public holidays. Maybe I could suggest that if there is concerns about excess noise coming out of the quarry, given its location and proximity to town or other residences, there may be restrictions placed on machinery operations with the potential to create excess noise, like screening and crushing. So allowing the quarry to operate 6 till 6 so they can still scrape and load trucks, which you maybe think wouldn't create a lot of noise in the proximity of other properties, but the crushing and screening activities that don't happen so regularly, maybe you could put some restrictions around that if you guys, if you council have concerns. And yes, similar to the last one, you can impose other conditions you feel are reasonable and relevant.
And the other thing with that Saturday is, to me, Saturday morning 6 o'clock is pretty early.
Yeah.
You have a lot of wind blowing, you might hear people, but if not, and whether there's an opportunity to do 8 o'clock on Saturday, because some people, that's their weekend, and but yeah, I like the idea of having to put the noise in machinery, but if someone rocks up at 6 a.m. and you've got the beep of the loader reversing and stuff.
There is an added note there about, so if you were to restrict operating hours and include Saturdays, and for whatever reason the quarry had a bigger job or there was more activity in that region, they can again apply to council to vary those operating hours, so maybe that's later for the operators if they do or are going to have concerns. So if you want to put restrictions around the excess or the noisy machinery and then limit operations on Saturday, and then give the opportunity for the operator to apply to council in the event that there was a major job, there could be a way to alleviate your concerns and address the operators.
And councillors, just for the new councillors, like if we don't get this right now and it's in place, it's difficult to solve things later. So, and I also believe it's actually better to be upfront with the applicant and say these are the conditions if the council decide to support that. But, in the winter time at 6 a.m. it's still dark and people will be within their rights. But I certainly don't want to affect someone trying to do their business. But do we have any questions, councillors?
Yeah, I just have a question, Mr. Mayor, about that. My only concern is, I'm not against that idea. My only concern is, I would like to know how that would affect the operation of that business. because, you know, maybe 6 a.m, like, I don't, if they're doing a road job, maybe the trucks, they will need it to, you know what I mean? I'd just like to know how that would affect that business so that we can make a decision that's right.
And I think it varies what Chris is saying, like, if there is a roadworks job on that, not only affecting that, it's affecting the
Well, that's,
job.
that's what I'm saying, is
Flow.
I want to know what the flow-on effects are too. We might not just be affecting this business, there might be other businesses we might be affecting, and I'm not saying it's right or wrong, I'm just like to know who we're affecting.
So would it be an issue for labour?
Well, there's two options, I guess. You could do that for sure, or if you were to impose conditions, the applicant has an opportunity to negotiate. There's 20 days to come back and say we're opposed to whatever aspects of the approvals or the conditions that council have done, and then we can bring that back again and you can make a decision on it. So if you impose the conditions or whatever conditions you want to now, it then gets sent to the applicant. We can review it, and if they've got concerns, they'll write to council as to why, and then we can bring that back again. Or you can lay it on the table and go and have those discussions now.
Mayor, just sort of clear that, so it's just Saturday again.
Yeah, Saturday.
Just so it's basically the last report there, we're looking at the conditions surrounding start times on Saturdays.
And the 8 to 4 for noisy machinery or something, because, you know, I think of someone with a newborn or something, and at 6 a.m. there could be like large noise till 6 at night. Councillors will be aware of other situations where that noise has been brought to council's attention in other ways, so, you know, we've got one chance of getting this right, so could you do the noisy machinery 8 to 4 or 8 to 5? What do you think would be reasonable in that?
As I say, in performance mayor, probably there's two things that control the noise there too. There's obviously the hours of operation, and there's actually the noise limits as well. So you can restrict the actual hours of operation. However, just because they've got those hours of operation doesn't mean they can make unlimited noise. You're still going to cap on the noise anyway. So that's actually measured from the boundary of what they call the noise affected premises. So in this instance, like you said, if someone's got a house in bathing, we're actually not measuring the noise limits from the source of the noise, we're actually measuring from the affected person. So there's two probably levels of protection. There's the hours of operation, and then it is the set noise limit. So as well. So, if you want to use the chance, the start time.
Yeah. Councillor McMahon.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I know with the houses, what's the distance to the closest house? It's written on roughly.
I think it's 950.
Yeah, 950.
950, probably in here somewhere. Yeah.
There is, I think, as I understand, there's some vegetation there as well, some regulated vegetation. I'm not sure how big it is, but.
No. And I guess there's been no objections from any of those nearby neighbours, no submissions.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Martin. The applicant, before the application was lodged to council, the applicant notified all his adjoining landowners, so he approached them earlier on in the process, and they all raised their own comment.
But councillors, yeah, well, I'd be happy to move on. So, what we got here? Yeah, hours of operation, is that without to, kill it?
You want me to go back to the top?
Yeah.
And can we?
You have another question?
I don't, Mr. Mayor, I was just like helping you out rather than agreeing on those recommendations.
Yeah.
On those again.
Yeah, no, I'm happy to have that advice, and I just want to make a couple of comments.
We'll just have the word develop, just for consistency with how the other one was.
This one didn't have to
Subject to the following development conditions and general advice. And then change, and then add the word development conditions.
That operating hours 18 says hours of operation include heavy vehicle movement to and from the site and transportation. So some of us up there at 4 o'clock.
And also,
How does it?
instead of following
It's
Kelvin last time.
material.
Yeah.
Take away, it's not. that going to stop them from?
Yes, so anything associated with the safety company, yeah. Sure, yes, it is.
Because that's one of the major problems is large trucks coming up, yes, 6 o'clock in the morning.
Can, through you, Mr Mayor, there's a similar situation with the quarry near Andy, but I think the difference there is the quarry's on their land and it's either 11 miles away, they've got a banner, but money sometimes speaks louder than noise, so yeah, I'm not sure the situation with the quarry there, is it on their own land or so like they've negotiated with?
No, they own the
They
land.
own the land.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
Other people, this is the court.
they own it, yeah, it's all,
Yes, so,
there's no reimbursement or anything like that, they're just happy, there's been no issues as such.
I think they actually consented to the making of that application, so they,
So they went in knowing.
exactly.
But see, in that case, even the people that were quite some distance away have got the issue with it. So they had issues with blasting and so forth. So it's yeah, like maybe the person close might have an interest, we're happy, but the person further away. But yeah, okay, so I'm happy that we got something up.
Yeah, and Mr Mayor, I was just wondering, CEO, at the end of that, would we put listed development conditions and general advice with the amendment to the operating hours on Saturday? Is that where we put that? With the amendment to the operating hours on Saturday to 8 AM to 6 PM.
I had put that down, that particular condition, just.
Oh, okay, I just.
It's all,
And then the other one I'd like to put
Up
in
to
there
you, Madam CEO.
is with how would you describe that?
So with the excess, so maybe the equipment and machinery with potential to create excessive noise, and then
Excessive noise.
in brackets, screening and crushing.
Yep.
Is restricted to the hours and whatever.
8 to 4.
And then the days, again, 8 to 4, Monday through Saturday.
Yeah, correct.
We're going to restrict it, you're suggesting to restrict the crushing from 8 to 4, 6 days a week.
6 days or whatever, because this.
I think just Saturday.
I thought we were talking to
No, I
Saturday.
meant, I just heard Monday through to Saturday, am I correct?
Yeah, Monday to Saturday, because you've got to realise this is a very rural residential area, and if we don't get these hours right, we don't have anywhere to go. So basically, they can operate outside that time, as long as there's not any complaints or whatever. So they can ask for, is that correct? They can ask for extra.
Yeah, so there's two ways to answer it. So the noisy machine or the crushing and screening occurs during those times, but they can still scrape and load things out in accordance with the conditions that we were originally talking about. But if there is a bigger job coming up and they need whatever reason crush and screen outside of those hours, then they can apply to council.
And plus they've got 20-something days to come back.
Screening.
And they can, yes, that's right.
Screening.
Because, but in my opinion, councillors, the reason that we don't have any complaints is, well, they haven't experienced it happening that as well. It's, like once you get a big quarry happening, then all of a sudden we are the ones that are actually given the approval. So Monday to Friday, and then we put in there about the, and remember that's excessive noise, not noise, so.
Can I ask, Mr Mayor, what's excessive noise? They can't do excessive noise any time, so.
Well, as it was said, crushing and screaming, which is the noisier piece of machinery.
But if it's excessive noise, they shouldn't be operating any time. There's a limit to what.
Well, I'm happy to take out excessive then. Noise from crushing and screaming. Because I am concerned about the location to other houses in that area. Councillors.
Mr Mayor, we've been getting a lot of emails from the neighbour about not using local quarries, and I'm sure we'll get one from him now if we start restricting the contractor from doing it. But anyway.
It's a bit of a can of worms, isn't it?
Yeah, well the closest neighbour has been very vocal about council not using a certain pit nearby there. And now, if we start restricting them, I think we'll cop it again.
So if that's 10 hours a day, 6 days a week, that's 60 hours they can pull gear out of there. And
No, that's crushing, Mr Mayor, not pulling gear out of there,
No.
you're doing crushing.
No, 8 till 6, pull the gear out. You know, that is 8 till 6, and basically it's 10 hours a day and 6 days a week, so 60 hours to pull the gear out, and then 8 till 4 is 8 hours a day, so that's 6 8s are 48 hours of crushing per week, and they have a limit between 5,000 and 100,000 tonnes.
So I suppose proof's going to be when they get back in negotiations, I suppose, but if that meets, they'll be able to calculate how much they can pull in that time, and if that fits in there, they might be happy. So we won't know. You don't reckon it will?
Through you, Mr Mayor,
I don't know what the
you can't base it on that, because you might have a permit for 100,000 tonne a year, but if you get an order for X amount of tonne, you can't say, well, you've got to wait 6 months till we get it, 6 weeks or whatever till we get it. I think to impose a limit on a significant reduction in the crushing time is no good, because crushing takes longer than does the car of the way, I can tell you.
What if we did, 4 o'clock seems a bit odd, like knock off that, like 5, or would it hurt to be?
7:30
or even 6, like can we put it on the end when it's not the early morning?
Well,
Like maybe go 8 to 6, so that.
Well, you know, in the winter time it's dark at 5 something. I'd be able to change that to 5 and 8 till 5. But and remember, like as it was said, if there's a big contract, they can apply to increase the hours. And if we don't have any complaints, I don't believe anybody's averse to allowing more hours if it's no complaints about it. This is really about the minimum.
And so, like I say, once again, the people that it's going to affect will get back to us in 20 days. So we're not losing anything, just it's a bit of consultation.
But there's a lot of people that live around that area, 6 kilometres out of Wonnabilla. Any other questions?
I just answer to that, Mr Mayor, not being smart, but the other quarries, it would be 6 kilometres out of, if it is, it wouldn't be anymore. The other quarry, I haven't heard any complaints on it, the one that's already on Swans Road.
No, exactly, but this is a new quarry, and you can't walk back once you've given the hours, and as Councillor Burke said, they've got 20 days to give their comments on it and see how much is that going to affect them. Because as the officer said, they can apply. If they've got a big contract on, they can ask for extra hours, and council, I don't believe, would mind as long as we don't have complaints about it. Okay.
So if that's the council intention to go with that, would it be possible maybe just lay on the table the start change just to make sure the wording is right. That's the intention, but obviously, if there's a different, council's going to go a different way again, too, but that's the intention. If it's going to get up, or just give us a chance just to tidy it up.
Right, that'd be good. Yeah, I'm happy to lay it on the table later in the meeting. Okay, all those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Okay, we might adjourn the meeting. We have a deputation here. Yep, okay, we'll resume. Item 14.1. Improve safety for residents of the Maranoa. I'd like to move that a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting. Do we have a seconder?
Carol, would you mind just putting evangelism up in the heading, just to make it easier to search? Yes, because the subject heading doesn't describe what the item is. So just put, perhaps amend that to evangelism initiative.
Well, it's also safety as well, because if we have the cameras, then people know that they're a bit protected. So probably both.
Maybe then could we change it to propose security cameras?
Can I just clarify, Madam CEO, there was a workshop last week that I went to on community safety and livability, and it's actually over a period of time and come out with a report, or, you know, like a community forum of information. And that was all about, one, responding is because they said not to consider police security cameras, it's actually not being found to be a solution, and there's a whole range of other solutions. So this is coming through people.
So, yeah, so just to clarify, the Mayor suggested that it's the Mayor's agenda item, not mine, but it proposes to investigate options for security cameras to be placed in problem hotspots. So if council would like the report extended beyond security or something different to be explored, now is the time to propose that, so that the report that comes back from the officers is valuable and meets council's needs.
So, Mr Mayor, if I can just share what I went to the other day, it's about looking at options to increase livability and feelings of security in the town. And it's a workshop being delivered through Griffith University. And one of the things they're looking at is having changes to the environment that precludes the need for security cameras. Now, whether it gets to that point, but that's the premise that they're working under. So I'm not sure whether it means that we change the wording or whether we leave it as what you had, but maybe I'm just giving you an alert to be aware that there's something happening at the same time.
Well, yeah, on that point, I certainly agree there's a lot of other things, and I'll be bringing a lot of other sort of reports forward, you know, council reports about other livability issues, attractiveness and so forth. This came back off the back of a letter from a resident, which was, and probably should have been on there, but it was to do with damage and so forth in areas of Roma. And the security cameras, yeah, I can understand, like, if you only do that, that's only one thing, but I do think they're valuable. I remember once there was actually a report worked out that if you take bins away, you actually have less rubbish, which was bizarre to me. But then if you put more and more bins in, you do actually have less rubbish. So we've got to be careful. But this is really about hotspots. So, you know, we want to make sure that there is least crime there. So this is about getting onto the hotspots in an area around the Maranoa to get on top of it. But it's not only the only initiative. So if you want to put something else in there, you're quite welcome to.
And I'm happy to say that, you know, security, I'm not saying don't put security cameras, but I think it's got to be seen in the light of a bigger set of solutions, and some are more effective than others. Yeah.
And so the question is it to reduce vandalism as a key driver as well as personal safety?
Personal safety as well, yeah, definitely. So we've got two councillors asking questions. There was Councillor Hancock and then Councillor McMullen.
So my question is, Mr Mayor, is do you know where the hotspots are so that staff would know where to look to?
Yeah, there was actually a letter, and I'm sorry it wasn't attached, but for instance, I don't probably want to go to the exact street, but it was in one area of Roma. So obviously the report would be able to bring that back. With, what I would like to see is that we do have some security cameras now, but we have a plan where residents could ask for an area that has issues in the Maranoa and that could be erected, you know, and it could be for a period of time, and then.
So maybe just to give a bit of direction to the staff to be able to bring a report back, like should we work with our local police or to find out how are we going to find the hotspots? I guess is my issue.
No, my question was going to be the same thing. So I'm quite happy.
Well, just to add on to Joe's too, not only the police, local business houses that already have security cameras. Like I know Mitchell is one that he's actually helped the police out because he's got it's that good. He sets up and does a whole block, so they often go to him for help in that respect. So that might alleviate some of the costs as well. So I think
maybe then the topic is investigation into security measures for property, people and property.
And Also, councillors too, you don't need to have cameras everywhere, but if people can be identified in the vicinity at a time, it really helps nail someone there, and then this happened just there. And but yeah, I agree. Really probably more focusing on residential areas, and there's a CR in the system for a letter that came in, which could be referenced as part of the report.
I think lighting would be part of the overall scheme as well. Lighting on the streets, never part of the election. Quite a few reasons.
Oh yeah, street lighting's always a big one. But you know, what my experience has been is once people have been held accountable for doing stuff, then the word gets around that you can't do it, and it makes it a safe environment. Okay, so, well, I moved it. Did we have a seconder in the end?
George did put his
Well,
hand up.
okay, Councillor Ladbrokes. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Item 14.2, council-owned private label meatworks. Do we have any questions on this, councillors?
I've got one, Mr. Mayor.
Please go ahead.
I'm just wondering if you had any appetite in just holding the resolution to prepare a report until there's an opportunity for the full council to have a briefing on all the steps that have led up to this point in terms of council's position in attracting investment into a meatworks in the Maranoa, because I think that would be vital information to consider whatever the next steps are, and this may be the next step, but we haven't had as a council a full briefing on the bulk work that's happened over the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, I'm happy to incorporate that in the recommendation that a briefing be done, but I just believe it is actually, there's a few issues that are quite urgent that will be coming up in the next few months. I wouldn't like it to stop a report being done, so I believe...
Oh, well, Mr. Mayor, the only if we had a briefing within the next fortnight and then reconsidered it, because if you resolve for a report to happen today, our staff will start to develop that report, and it may not be where council wants to go, and it may be, but my point is that there has been so much work happen, as you would be aware, and it also predates your first term in council, work around it and getting an investment into a meatworks in the Maranoa. I just think it's vital for all councillors to have that briefing, and if we can have it next week or the week after, that's timely.
Councillor Neil, it's Rob. I was just saying to councillors there, we've actually booked in for the 7th of October for that briefing session.
Oh, there you go, Robert.
That's for the history of the other one, not this one, but yeah, there is a briefing, so it's on the 7th.
Yeah, I'm certainly happy to have the briefing. I just would like to know that after that, if council, would like to, that we actually get moving with it.
Well, then it'd have to come back to the next meeting, wouldn't it?
After the 7th, yeah.
So it's just a matter of laying this on the table until the next ordinary meeting after the 7th, isn't it?
Yep, I'm happy to lay this on the table till the 14th of October.
Mr. Mayor, can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Is it something
What, sorry?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not what we pay our money for. For them to
Well,
help us through those sorts of things?
yeah, it can be. They probably more are someone about sourcing someone to do something, whereas this one, what I'm putting forward to council, briefing is actually council-owned meatworks. So we sort of don't need anyone except for, they might be able to help as parts of, some of the planning and that, but really they, for instance, one of the other councils wanted feedlots, so they were looking for feedlots to come and do that. So I believe this is a bigger challenge, and we've had many, many years of trying to get a meatworks here. So to me, I believe we can build it, we've got the
scale. We can have meatworks here, but we've got to put skin in the game to get it to happen. Councillor Hancock.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I also would like to, before we make a decision on this, I would actually like to have the briefing from the Economic Development Strategy. Ed did come and brief council, but then he also mentioned that he needs to get back in front of council to show us an action plan that come out of that report. And so this is economic development. I think we need to, and this is a huge decision, I think we need to have a look at that whole plan of what's out there for economic development before we make decisions. So I don't know when that briefing might be booked in for, but if that could occur maybe even on the same day.
An economic development briefing.
You know, the strategy.
The livability strategy.
The livability strategy.
Council resolved first to put it out to consultation on a patio sale platform.
Yep.
And a report on the delivery of that to come back to a future.
That's right. And when you were here, Ed, I thought you were saying that you'd like to get back in front of council to be able to present the outcomes to us. I just wonder if we could do that as well.
Yes, this is a big proposal we're talking about here. If I just might add your resolution or proposed resolution to go to community consultation about this, the community will say, yes, we want one. And you're potentially facing a $60 million investment for a good service collaborator. So there's a few hurdles to get over here, like pre-feasibility. Is this concept viable? Might be one step you take before you went to consultation. Because I guarantee you, once you go to the community will say, yeah, cool. Why wouldn't you? That's probably 100 people jobs. There's just a few questions to answer. You know, what type of abattoir? Is it viable? What's the market doing currently? There's several proposals for abattoirs, service abattoirs out there right now. Everyone's slowing down. Abattoirs are putting off people and cutting their production. I'm not saying it's not viable at the same time, but you know, there's a few questions to answer before we went to consultation. For me personally, I would relish the opportunity to investigate this. However, if you go to the community, I will say do it, and then you'll be accountable to the decision why you didn't. So, this is what I have.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. But just explaining that, and I'm happy to have, as Councillor O'Neill said, we can have the briefing. But the idea of going to the community is not saying we're definitely going to build it, it's actually saying are they in support of the council running the meatworks. The one thing I'd say about the comment there is that we're in a high cycle of beef prices, and generally they're profitable in a lower cycle. So Ed, you're completely correct, there'll be many steps to go through. And I'd like to do it completely different to how most farm meatworks have happened, is I'd like to build a small one and then scale it up. So the risk is lower, so you learn the industry, and some of the farm meatworks have done the opposite. They've had consultants tell them they need big meatworks to make it profitable, and they've completely done their backside. So, but I'm happy to, and I've moved that we have the briefing. And it comes back to the meeting after the following.
The second one, Mr Mayor, that the matter lay on the table until the next ordinary meeting.
Yeah, at the matter lay on the table until the next ordinary meeting on the 14th of October 2020. Do we have a seconder for that?
You don't need a seconder for that.
Oh, that's right, you don't. Good point. We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Item 14.3, improved disabled parking for Mitchell. I'd like to move that a report be prepared for an upcoming council meeting. Do we have a second?
Sorry, excuse me, just whereabouts in Alice Street is?
The suggestion was, and there was a CRM system for this one as well, from a disabled person that came to Mitchell and said it was full service.
I don't think there's any down disabled parking down.
Exactly. So basically they were saying to service the main street round in Alice Street, because when you've got your motorised wheelchairs and being able to get out, you need lots of width, and to have a space in Alice Street so they can whiz around
Main Street. So, as far as the actual location,
Yeah, it's got to be
don't have
recorded.
any of that.
We probably just need to put a little bit more guidance in what it is that the officers.
Yeah, did you have a question?
I'm just gonna ask, Alice Street, which?
Past Tyre Centre.
Yeah, around the corner. I thought it was, I wasn't sure. Where the pub is.
Yeah, no, I think talking on the bakery side, you know, where there's the bakery, the butcher and so forth, but around the corner.
Oh, the bus, yeah. It's a bit messy there.
But that was just a suggestion by the user, but like, there could be another suggestion. So, somewhere where there's wide enough space to pull the vehicle up, because, you know, as you know, if you don't have enough space, you can't get out of your car. People sort of pin you in. So that was the suggestion for Mitchell.
We just had some words in the executive summary. So in the report, focus on the area around the bakery.
Or just in Alice Street, close to CBD. CBD, Mitchell.
Well, that's where the taxi rank used to be, wasn't it?
Yeah, but there's actually 2 bus stops now, but that always was a taxi
rank.
Yeah, bus stop used to be in front of the vet clinic. So
well, we should say focused for disabled space in Alice Street, servicing the CBD.
Around.
yeah, it's I was just thinking then with the RV friendly town there as well, there's allocations that start nearly run out of. And some of the business owners park out the back and creating more space, but everyone's fighting for that vital spot. The George Costanza spot.
Around the corner from the bakery in Alice Street. It's not the bakery's in the main street. Around the corner from the bakery, it sounds better than in Alice Street.
Yeah. Even if it's across the road, maybe.
Yeah, but around the corner at the bakery, it made it sound like the bakery in Alice Street. The way it was.
Yeah.
Maybe instead of putting within the CBD, providing access to.
I'd even get rid of the bakery part. So I think it covers being access to the CBD. I don't think we need the bakery in there.
What about the high traffic area of the CBD? I don't know. The only thing I'd say, council, is the request for someone that was in a wheelchair using it, so I think we should.
Do they work, say the bakery though?
I know, they said Alice.
Yeah, no, not.
But I'm just saying that's where they thought would be a good spot, so.
I just, the way it was worded, it made it sound like the
Yeah,
bakery
no,
was
I'm
in Alice Street.
happy with that. Okay, so I'll move that. Is there a second, or did we have one?
Should you read that out, Mr. Mayor, just because we've changed it?
That a report be prepared for the upcoming council meeting. And the executive.
It's just that topic there, Mr. Mayor, to do have parking for residents in Mitchell. The reports ought to focus on the area around the corner.
Yeah, I'd get rid of that.
Or just around area in Alice Street, Mitchell's, providing access to the CBD.
Yeah, I think that's good.
Yeah. Then you're not highlighting anyone's business.
And Councillor Edwards, you seconded that. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, who was the seconder for that?
Councillor Edwards?
Thank you.
Do we have lunch here yet? Done the open flight. We'll adjourn for lunch. We'll keep going with the meeting, start the meeting up, and do we have anyone to please go ahead?
In accordance with the provisions of section 275 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, the local government may resolve to close the meeting and to discuss confidential items that is the councillors or members consider it necessary to close the meeting. That's the right one?
Yep, sounds pretty good. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor, I think, was first. Any opposition? Anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
Okay, do we have something to add to the agenda? Who would like to move?
Who's got it written here? C16? LC16? No.
It's on the screen.
It's on the screen. Mr Mayor, I'll move that council add item LC16, subject heading Glen Olive Road matter, Mount Howe, to the agenda.
And for the reasons of, sorry, can the reasons for the Glen Olive Road, H and on the report, the reasons were closed. Do you recall what's H?
Yeah, just the discussions in public about the prejudice.
Yeah, so subsection 27H.
Okay.
You happy with that?
Reasons for 275H.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote.
Yes.
9-0. Okay.
Mr Mayor, I move we're going to close.
Yeah, you want to do that extra wording or? You know, that extra wording?
Well, we're going to, no, we can't do it, we're not in close.
No, but
It's the wording to go into close.
Oh, all right. In accordance with the provisions of section 275 of the Local Government Regulation 2012, a local government may resolve to close a meeting to the public to discuss confidential items that its councillors or members consider it necessary to close the meeting.
Okay, do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, any opposition? All those in favour?
It's for the item
Yes.
listed against the reports. Yeah.
9-0. Okay, L1, closure of Surat Library Services for electrical works. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that council endorse the closure of the Surat Council Library Services and Common Code Changing Station to allow needed electrical works to take place on Saturday 10 October and Sunday 11 October 2020.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
Just change that S on station to a capital, please.
Okay, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. L2, undercover sports area in Wallumbilla. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council consider this request.
So do you want a report or just consider it? You happy to consider it? We've got a second to Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it?
So what is the next step? Sorry, Mr Mayor.
Well, I was just wondering if Councillor McMullen and Edwards wanted a report. Just got.
So we have.
Should we ask for a report then?
Yeah, investigation.
That the matter be further investigated.
Okay, let the matter be further investigated.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that.
Second, happy with that? Righto, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. L3, monthly financial reports as at 31st of August 2020. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. I move that the monthly financial report for the period ending 31st of August 2020 be received and noted.
We have a second to Councillor Ladwell. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
That's it, isn't it?
Okay, what's next, Health?
C1.
C1, thank you. C1, Bringa Heritage of Councillor Ladbrook. Councillor Burkett is leading me that song. Okay, C1, Bringa Heritage Group Incorporated request to erect a shed at Bringa Heritage Museum. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council as trustee of land described as lot 1 on SP 265643 grant approval for the Bringa Heritage Group Inc. to erect a colorbond shed 12 metres long by 7.5 metres wide and 3.2 metres high on the premises, subject to council standard building and planning approval.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0. We can get the councillor back, please. Page 8, C2. State Government Surplus Properties, Maranoa Region. Do we have a mover? Councillor Guthrie.
I move that the council note the government land minister report for the period of the 17th of August 2020 to the 24th of August 2020, number 1. And number 2, that future reports pertaining to the state government surplus properties include an indicative price range for purchase wherever possible.
We have a seconder. Councillor Edwards, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Page 14. Expression of interest, agistment of paddock, lease paddock number 2, Dargle Road, Roma. Did we get a bucket? Beauty.
Should we move the first motion? Excuse me, Mr Mayor.
We're going to move the motion.
Excuse me, Mr Mayor, we have to move the motion.
Yeah, okay, we'll move the motion in preparation. Do we have a mover?
Councillor Taylor.
Councillor Taylor.
Move the council conduct a ballot order to design as a successful applicant.
Okay, do we have a seconder?
Councillor Taylor. Director's James has got to do the minutes for this item.
Okay. So we have a seconder for that motion. Councillor Hancock. Righto. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. We now can do the ballot.
Yeah, just so councillors are 11 parties, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
Can you just show us the mayor as chairman, Rob?
Yep. All the same name? Yep.
Preferred.
Yeah, can we scrunch them up when they go in and we'll just tick them off?
Nerve-wracking stuff.
$1 million decision. Yeah. Good raffles.
Geez, long
and skinny's a lot
maybe I'll stay here all night in the morning.
Ready for the next session.
Yeah, just stay here, we can camp stretch.
You actually. No, nothing on the banner.
Good shape.
Yeah.
Yep, please go ahead. Just pick one.
I'm trying.
How come he got the pick? Is he more important than anyone else?
You got one.
Cheryl Rogers. I'll just show the CEO. Cheryl Rogers. Thank you, please go ahead.
Thank you.
Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, the council enter into a formal grazing agreement with Miss or Mrs. Ms Cheryl Rogers for use of paddock number 2 Dargle Road, Roma, for a maximum of 4 horses.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Page 43. 15.4, claim for damages after street Roma. Do we have a mover? Councillor Taylor.
I'd like to move that council reimburse the claimant $617.15, being for the out-of-pocket expenses incurred on the following conditions. 1, council and the claimant acknowledge that council are not legally liable to dispute. And 2, that the claimant agrees to accept the amount of $617.15 as a full and final settlement of all claims arising from the alleged incident on the 8th of June 2020.
And Councillor Taylor, I'm wondering whether you would be happy to add in a point and wishing the claimant well in the future with her recovery.
That'd be fine.
It's not really a condition, but further that.
But yeah.
Wish the claim.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be number 3. Yeah.
And number 3, further that council wishes to claimant.
Oh, it says 16.40.
One's in their recovery.
Her recovery.
Do we have a seconder?
Perfect, thanks, Carol.
Councillor McMullen, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
This is a separate resolution, I'm sorry, Chairman. I'd like to move, do we need a number for that?
It will be added.
Maybe I'll move that a report be brought back to an upcoming council briefing summarising the outcome of a recent footpath assessment conducted on council's footpath network.
Sorry, Councillor, could I just make one suggestion that council have that a councillor briefing be arranged?
Yeah.
On the outcome of a recent footpath assessment, and then that way we're not falling into
an
inappropriate governance process where there's a report coming to a briefing because no decisions are made there.
Okay, I'll move that a council briefing be arranged on the outcome of a recent footpath assessment conducted on council's footpath network.
We have a seconder. Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. C5, tender 20031, new house construction at 171 Alice Street, Mitchell, Queensland, 4465. I would like to move that number 1, council select Allwood Building Services Pty Ltd as the recommended tenderer for tender 20031, new house build at 171 Alice Street, Mitchell, Queensland 4465. 2, council authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to enter into final negotiations with Allwood Building Services Pty Ltd, noting the tendered value of $284,778, exclusive of GST, $313,255.80 inclusive of GST, and execute the contract if the final terms are acceptable. 3, expenditure be assigned to work order 21882, 171 Alice Street, Mitchell, renewal.
Can we just, if you don't mind, we just look at assign the expenditure.
Assign,
You just got the command wrong there.
did I? On 3,
Yeah.
expenditure be assigned.
Assign.
Oh, we'll change it, haven't we? Assign the expenditure work order. Assign the expenditure to work order 21882, 171 Alice Street, renewal, Mitchell renewal. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9. Oh, please go ahead.
I said yes.
You said yes? Yeah, okay. So we're 9-0 on that one. Okay, moving on.
Model 3 bulletin.
C6, tender Model 3 bulletin. Councillor Hancock is leaving the room. C6, tender Bottle Tree Bulletin. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
I move that Council 1 enter into contract with Ringer Action Group Incorporated
To produce and distribute the Bottle Tree Bulletin for the next 24 months. 2, select option 1, existing format as provided by Ringer Action Group. 3, select 12 pages per edition. 4, note that Council is open to discussions about a new logo design if Ringer Action Group wishes to pursue a distinctive alternative design. And 5, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or Delegate to enter into final negotiations with Ringer Action Group Incorporated, noting the tendered value of $196,800, including GST, for a 24-month period, and accept the contract if the final terms are acceptable. And 6, assign the expenditure to GL 2018.2210.2002.
We have a seconder, Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0. C7, application for community organisation concession assessment 1401183, 140100029 and 1401521. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council grant the applicant the following concessions in accordance with the rates and charges, rebates and concessions policy, community organisations, effective from 1 July 2020, assessment 140152118, concession class B, assessment 140100029, concession class B, 1401183, concession class H, at the end of it.
We have a seconder, Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. C8, application for community organisation concession assessment 1200063. 4. We have a mover, Councillor Burkett.
I move that Council grant the applicant a concession class C, concession in accordance with the rates and charges, rebate and concession policy effective from 1st of January 2020.
Okay, we had a second to councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0. Thank you, councillor O'Neill. Okay, C9, page 182. Left the room, and I'd like to move that the matter lay on the table until the next ordinary meeting of the 14th of October 2020. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0.
So who was the second bit of that?
Didn't need to.
Oh, okay.
Move low on the table. That was C9, policy review rates recovery. So we're on to C10. 195. C10, relief for water supply invoices debtor. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 waive the fee invoice numbers 51031 and 51032 on this occasion only. 2, advise the applicant that water access at Surrey Airport is locked and that an account must be set up with council for payment for future water purchases. And 3, advise land owners about access to water at the Surrey Airport for crop dusting. Sorry, can I amend that number?
Yeah, spraying, actually.
Advise landowners about access to the Surat Airport for crop dusting, for crop dusting and water access.
We have a seconder, councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to the vote. All those.
Just very mad. Because still.
Sorry, wording. Advise landowners about access to the Surat Airport. For crop dusting and water access.
Okay, does everyone understand the motion? Is the seconder happy with that as well?
Yes.
Righto. We're now going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. C11, page 199, request from assessment number 11007721. Have a mover, councillor McMullen.
Oh, I was in the wrong one, so that's all right.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're back on the.
We read out C11, yeah.
Well, we go back, can we go back?
You can do
so. So we're back to, C10.
No.
It'll be a new number.
New number, another number. Please go ahead, councillor McMullen.
Okay, well, I'll move that council investigate the installation of AB data at the Surat Airport and options for bore water with a report brought back to council at a future meeting.
That's what to be brought.
We have a seconder? Councillor.
Can I just ask, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
Through you, Mayor, Councillor McMullen, the AB data would be for the water only?
Yeah.
Yes, pretty sure.
That's what it's, council investigate the installation of AB data at the Surat Airport and options for bore water.
Yeah, just correct me if I'm wrong, isn't it AB data that also collects the data at the Roma Airport for the flights that come in and out?
I do that.
So you might, if you're just intending on the water, you may want to just specify for the bore.
Yeah, installation of
data, water.
At the Surat Airport for the bore.
No, for monitoring, yeah.
For water monitoring at the Surat Airport. Yeah, that makes it better. I'll read it again. The council investigate the installation of AV data for water monitoring at the Surat Airport and options for bore water, with a report to be brought back to council at a future meeting.
Option for water access, like.
Yeah,
needs
that's quite
something
rude.
else.
Bore water access, okay.
I'm happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Okay, we're moving on to request for assessment, as I said, 11007721. Do we have a mover? Oh, Councillor Taylor was first. Silent, but was first.
I'd like to move that council approve this request to expand the regional water supply zone and advise the applicant of this decision.
We have a second to Councillor McMullen. Any opposition? We're going to the vote. All those in favour? 9-0.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor O'Neill. Okay, C12. Page 203. And Councillor Ladbrook has left the room. C12, Bassett Park Stables upgrade. Do we have a mover? Councillor Edwards.
I move that Council 1 select JEM Building Private Limited as the recommended tenderer for tender 21005, Bassett Park Stables upgrade. Number 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to enter into final negotiations with JEM Building Private Limited, noting the tendered value of $580,629.56, including GST. They accept the contract if the final terms are acceptable. And 3, assign expenditure to work order 2213C.
We have a seconder. Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0.
In point 1, can you just add an extra T for Bassett?
Sorry, say that again?
Extra T.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Okay, we're moving on to page 220, C13, replacement of concrete causeway to culvert. Do we have a mover? Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move that council investigate options to design a culvert for this road at the same height and for the information to be brought back to a future ordinary meeting.
We have a seconder. Councillor Taylor.
I just have a question, Mr. Mayor,
Sure.
if that's okay. Sorry, just for clarity, the heading says replacement of concrete causeway to culvert. It doesn't say what road or where it is, and we just moved a resolution just saying for this road.
Okay.
So it doesn't really say where it is or.
The mover might be able to help with that.
Well, it's going on this road in June.
You happy to put that in there?
I'm happy to put that in.
That's a really good pickup, thank you.
We talked,
This road, no,
and we talked about it today.
I thought it must be a second screw.
Seconder happy with that, Councillor Taylor? Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Don't we put it in there?
Gulliwin West Road.
Down on West, yeah.
I'd put in the subject heading, is that all right?
At least it's identified now.
Yeah, Kel will do the final thing tomorrow.
For this road, and at the same height, is that meaning at the same height of the road or at the same height?
Same height as the concrete causeway. So no loss of height, people driving.
Just simply drilling a hole through.
Yeah.
Couple of yard hoses through there.
Yes.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I'm just making sure we have.
Yep. Is the seconder happy with that too?
Yeah.
Okay, well, did we go to the vote? I think we did.
I interrupted the vote, I think.
Right, we'll go to the vote again. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Late, confidential, Phil?
Yeah.
George has got to go.
Item, Councillor Ladbrook has just left the room. LC1, update to matters related to the unknown section of road off Humphreys Road. Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I will move Council 1 confirm resolution 0M-05.2020-55 and advise the applicant that the request for a permit to occupy the unnamed section of road of Humphreys Road adjacent to lot 11 on WAL 53496 is not supported. 2, subject to compliance with the procedural requirements specified in Local Law Number 1, Administration 2011, A, cancel the licences for gate number 535 and gate number 536, and B, issue a compliance notice requiring the owner of lot 11 on WAL 53496 to fence the northern boundary of the unnamed section of road off Humphreys Road, where the road abuts lot 11 on WAL 53496 to the extent that the land is not currently fenced, and remove the 2 gates from Council's road network. 3, recognising that the actions as outlined in Part 2 of this resolution do come at a cost to the landholder. A, provide a period of 6 months to complete the action as outlined in Part 2 of this resolution, and B, reimburse the owner of the licensed gates as contemplated in Council's gates and grid policy, incentive to fence out, at a value of $1,500 per structure gate or per gate. Confirm that the unnamed section of road off Humphreys Road, between the end of Humphreys Road and Brookfield Road, be added to the Council's road register and classified as a rural access secondary. Is that it?
Okay, do we have a seconder for that motion? I'll second the motion. Any opposition to the motion? Does anyone wish to speak to the motion?
No, thanks.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0.
Mr Mayor, can I just ask, can other people see what's happening on Teams still?
Yeah.
No, we can't, because that was sent through as an email.
No, but can you see Teams still, Councillor Guthrie?
No.
Yeah.
We can see, but not what was on this big screen.
Mine's stuck on C13.
Not for that particular
Yeah,
one.
okay, so it's not me, all right.
It's Kelly.
It's screen sharing still, so
Yes.
it may be slow.
Okay, well, we're moving on to LC2, Maranoa Place-based suicide prevention project. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 terminates the funding deed for the Maranoa Place-based suicide prevention project. 2, transfers all remaining assets relevant to the funding deed to Lifeline, Darling Downs and Southwest.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. LC3, page 108. Surat Early Childcare Education Centre, a request to remove child-safe fence to utilise area to southern and western boundary of lot 703 on S282. Please go ahead, Councillor Hancock.
Mr Mayor, I move that Council 1 give in principle support for the removal of the existing fence and installation of new fencing within the area described as Lease C on Survey Plan 703 on S282 Enter A in the Surat Early Childcare Education Centre Management Deed, subject to the following conditions.
Do we have a second?
No, sorry, I'm still going.
Oh,
A,
sorry.
prior support is obtained from adjoining landowners, or B, the child safe fence is kept inside the existing boundary fence. And then number 2, remove the above ground stormwater pipe and install a bubble system, and cost associated expenses to work order 14164.2332, Surat Childcare Centre Maintenance Plumbing.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Els, page 114. Audit Committee, appointment of external members. Do we have a mover? Councillor Edwards.
I move that one council appoint Michael Booth as external audit committee member. 2, note that the audit committee meeting is scheduled for the 17th September 2020, was postponed to 28th September 2020. Number 3, call for expressions of interest for the remaining position of external member, in brackets, 1 position. Number 4, in the event attendance is required in person, expenses be reimbursed at cost for the rates set by the Australian Taxation Office, for the cents per kilometre method for car expenses when travelling from outside the region. Number 5, on the basis of the resolution from the meeting on the 9th of September 2020 in relation to item 8.1, the audit committee terms of reference be updated so that all councillors are invited to attend the meeting as follows.
That's different to that.
Is that right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
What was
Oh, you had update after the.
On the basis of.
That's different to that.
I'll read that again, number 5 is. On the basis of the resolution from the meeting on 9th September 2020 in relation to item 8.1, update the audit committee terms of reference so that all councillors are invited to attend the meeting as follows. Committee composition. Membership of the committee will comprise of 2.
Comprise.
Sorry.
That's a typo.
Comprise.
We'll need to change that.
Committee, I'll start again. Committee composition. The membership of the committee will comprise just 2, isn't it? Just 2. Will comprise 2 in brackets. Councillors and 2. Number 2 in brackets. External members appointed by council. Council will appoint one of the external members of the audit committee as chairperson. All other councillors and brackets non-audit committee members, close brackets, are invited to attend the audit committee meetings as observers. Number 6. Number 6, the audit committee terms of reference be updated so that any committee member or attendee may participate by teleconferencing.
Excuse me, Kel, can you make that a little bit wider, please? We're not using the full width. Might make it a bit bigger too, but we can shift him across.
Teleconferencing, where practical or necessary, any member or attendee may participate in a committee meeting via the use of a telephone, video conferencing equipment, or other means of instant communication that allows a person to take part in discussions as they happen. Those participating in a committee meeting by teleconference must ensure they are in a place that maintains the confidentiality of the committee meeting discussions without others present, where applicable in accordance with the confidentiality procedure.
That's probably the record for the longest motion, I think. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Guthrie, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Moving on to page 149. LC5, tender 21010, sale of vacant land located on Rose Smith Lane, Muckadilla, Queensland 4461, lot 17 on M3831. We have a mover, Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council 1 select MB and CM Coomber as the recommended tenderer for tender 21010, sale of vacant land located at Rose Smith Lane, Muckadilla, Queensland 4461 on lot 17 on M3831, and delegate authority to the Chief Executive Officer to sign documentation necessary to settle the sale.
We have a seconder, Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0.
159.
LC6, Neil Turner Weir Licence Agreement. Do we have a mover? Councillor Burkett.
I'd like to move that Council 1 enter into an agreement with Sunwater Limited with respect to land described as over lot 3 on RP 53700, lot 8 on RP 53700 and part of lot 6 on RP 53700. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to execute the agreement and any other associated documentation.
Excuse me, Councillor Burkett, as the mover, would you mind accepting a change?
Yep.
Sorry, Councillor, just saying, because it's quite a lengthy document, we're still going to go through legals there, just suggesting that point 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to negotiate and execute. Just in
To
case.
negotiate the final terms.
Yeah.
And acceptable. And execute the agreement and any other associated documents if those terms are acceptable.
You hear that? I can't hear you. Telepathic. So, number 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer or delegate to negotiate and execute the agreement and any other associated documentation if those terms are acceptable.
Yep. Okay, we've got a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
I'd just like to, on behalf of the Mitchell community, I'd like to thank the Maranoa Regional Council, Bringer Action Group, local businesses, community and tourists, and even the Roma community for all the support and getting this done. It could have been a bit of a travesty, but thanks to everyone for that great work.
Would anyone else like to speak? I'd certainly like to speak and say, and thank you for the quick response from the Mitchell community. I'm extremely impressed at the officers at the speed in which we've come to a resolution to look at this situation where we can really take away the opportunity for it to happen in future. So well done to the staff, as well as Councillor Burkett has mentioned all the community groups in the community. So on that note, if no one else wishes to speak, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Page 194. LC7, rates business service, rates on demand. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that 1, pursuant to section 235B of the Local Government Regulation 2012, Council is satisfied there is only one supplier due to the specialised nature of the services that are sought, and 2, Council approve the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, to sign the agreement for the rates business service on demand for a period of 1 year if the final terms are acceptable.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Guthrie. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. LC 8, declaration of state control roads for transport and main roads. Do we have a mover? Councillor Hancock.
I move that Council 1 note receipt of the correspondence from the Department of Transport and Main Roads dated 10 August 2020, advising that revocation and declaration actions are being proposed to define the state's existing transport corridors. 2, authorise the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, to formally provide a submission to the Department of Transport and Main Roads consistent with the letter attached to this officer's report. 3, provide a copy of the submission to the Chief Executive of the Local Government Association, LGAQ, and email notification to the President of the Local Government Association of Queensland, LGAQ. 4, provide the Western Queensland Alliance and the South West Queensland Council of Mayors an overview of the matter, highlighting key elements of the submission.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Taylor, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. LC 9, Rasley Road upgrade, gravel resheet and minor realignment, landowner compensation agreement. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council authorise the Chief Executive Officer, CEO or delegate to 1, formally enter into a road agreement with the landholder of Lot 2 on registered plan RP 200575 in accordance with Section 15 of the Acquisition of Land Act 1967. 2, authorise the payment of all reasonable legal fees incurred by the affected landholder to complete the road opening process. And 3, authorise compensation payment to the affected landholder consistent with option 2 as outlined in the body of the report.
Just preference, landowner or landholder? Yeah, Councillor McMullen, do you mind if we leave those 3 references as landowner?
Yeah, fine. Or make them all the landowner.
We have a seconder? Councillor McMullen. Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Okay, we have Councillor Taylor leaving the room. LC 10, Roma Sayers representative for Australian Livestock Markets Association Incorporated membership. Do we have a mover? Councillor Guthrie.
I'd like to move that Council endorse the manager of the sale yards as the Roma Sale Yards member, representative for the Australian Livestock Markets Association Inc., including any general meeting and any special general meetings of the association.
We have a seconder, Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
8-0. Councillor Taylor and Guthrie have left the room. Sorry, Councillor Taylor's back. Councillor Hancock, Guthrie left the room. Item LC 11, Hey Roma Dam. Do we have a mover? Councillor Ladbrook.
I'd like to move number 1, receive and note the letter of response received from the officer of the Honourable Dr. Anthony Latham. Lynham, is it? Lynham?
Yeah, Lynham.
Minister for Natural Resources, Mines and Energy, dated 10th of September 2020. 2, receive and note the email circulated to all councillors from Vicky Knight, dated 18th of September 2020, including attached supporting documentation. Number 3, subject to confirmation from the Minister's Office, provide a copy of the received correspondence to interested landholders.
And at the top, we'll just have from the office rather than the officer.
Yeah, so you're happy to just read that first line again?
It's just with that one heading.
Yep, receive and note the letter of response received from the officer of...
No, just office.
Office.
Yeah, that's, and the rest was...
Of the Honourable Anthony Lynham.
That's it, spot on. Do we have a second? Councillor Burkett. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
7-0.
3-2.
LC 12, tender 21007, sale of land and buildings at 29 Bowen Street and 45-47 Hawthorne Street, Roma. I would like to move that council receive and note the information. 2, conclude the tender process. 3, decline the offer received after the close of tender to purchase 29 Bowen Street and 45-47 Hawthorne Street, Roma. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. I'm out of the room for the next one, councillors. Or you do it earlier or?
No.
That's right.
Yeah, you're right, I'm just jumping the page, that's all, I missed.
355.
Won't need much because okay, the mayor's left the room. LC 13, update of flood mitigation matter. Do I have a mover, please? Councillor Ladbrokes.
I'd like to move that we authorise the Chief Executive Officer, CEO, to further discuss option 4 as outlined in the letter.
I have a seconder. Councillor Edwards. Anyone, any opposition? Anyone want to speak for or against the motion?
We've just added that council at the front.
Oh, yeah, the council authorised it. I go put it to the vote, and no one wants to talk. All those in favour? So that's 8-0.
LC 14, preliminary queries for council proposed organisational structure. I'd like to move that the information be considered. Do we have a seconder for that motion? Councillor Ladbrokes, any opposition?
Just a question, Mr Mayor.
Yes.
We've already considered it. What are we going to do with the information? I don't know.
Well, I haven't considered it yet. We've just received it. You mean the feedback?
Oh, the report, not that. Sorry,
So I think we need more detail there then, just.
Well, did you want to set a date to come together? It would be better if it's not next week on the way.
Perhaps we could break it up into 1 and 2, that, council note received that council, would you mind if I?
Yes, please, yes, please.
Perhaps one, which is what the mayor's point was alluding to, is that, that councillors consider, the preliminary queries that are coming, that are being raised and proposed and give consideration.
Wouldn't we just receive a note? Receive a note.
Did you want some guidance on setting that consultation?
I think that's the second part. Before we set the date, the council needs to give consideration to the preliminary queries that have come through. And then point 2 could be that arrangements be made for a date that is suitable for councillors' diaries and workforce arrangements,
yes,
whereby the elected council could brief the workforce on their vision for the proposed organisational structure.
do you need point 1 and 2 or just
Council raised. Now, is it the intention, councillors, that you're coming together at a briefing, at a future, come together for a briefing to discuss those draft responses?
Yep.
Okay, consider the preliminary queries that have been raised and come together for further discussion with as a group.
Yeah, well, it could even be at our next, depending when we get time, it could be at our next general meeting, you know.
Be raised and come together for further discussion in relation to
future meeting.
Would be a briefing, wouldn't it?
Well, if you're going to make a decision, then it should be at a general meeting. You know, if you're just getting one-way information, then it should be a briefing. Any questions?
For further discussion at a briefing and ultimate consideration of future meeting.
I'm just thinking time-wise, like, that briefing day cost us nearly 2 hours. And that's probably going to be longer.
Well, it depends how much information, but I think we need to keep moving the process.
So consider the preliminary queries that have
So
been
you're
raised.
out next week, Mr Mayor?
Yeah, I'm all,
So that's as of Monday, I mean.
I think we've got audit committee on Monday, isn't it?
Monday at 2.
Monday at 2. And unless you want to do it on an off day.
I think that sounds fine, that council consider the preliminary queries that have been raised and come together for further discussion and a briefing, and then formal consideration of future meeting. And then 2, that through councillors' diary arrangements, that some possible dates be identified for the elected, for a briefing for the elected members to hold a briefing for the workforce about council's vision for the proposed structure.
Okay, I'm happy with that. Is the seconder happy with that? Councillor Ledbrook?
Yes, sir.
Righto. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour? All those against?
Councillor O'Neill, are you still there?
Or did you want us to read that again, Councillor O'Neill, or are you okay?
I lost him.
Got
Got the text, Cam's got a text by the council.
His last couple of yeses were very.
Can I?
Might have his pajamas on.
He wanted to go to
He
sleep.
might have his jammies on.
Getting late.
With regards to the meeting with the whole of the the briefing staff, can I, this is just, the only reason I'm suggesting this date, I think that their next RDO is the 2nd of October, a Friday, was it the day before, the Thursday? If anyone's away camping somewhere else, instead of bringing them home for, does that sort of make sense?
Well, we might need to come up with a couple of dates.
Okay,
because we've got people spread across the whole region.
That's what I was thinking, but.
Probably try and work out.
I take on board what you're saying about all together, that's what I was worried about, getting them all in.
Yeah.
That's one.
But, you know, at the end of the assignment.
I wonder if I could bring him in on my mobile there.
Red light on Cam.
Yeah, all good, mate.
On this side, means no line, doesn't it?
Yeah, yep, I just reset it there.
It's green now.
Just do it on, can you do it on Joe's?
I'll just.
We'll just wait a minute.
I'll be there.
We're almost there.
You got money on 10 o'clock, haven't you?
Yeah, well, I lost.
What's the late minutes?
Aye?
Rackets. Have you had rackets or?
You might just have to use another phone.
Do what I said?
Yeah, I think so.
You haven't got too many to go. 2 to go, yeah, this one.
Hey Cam. Hi Joe. You're on speakerphone. We're just having trouble with the other phone, so I'm just going to put my mobile near the speaker so the audio can hear you, and we'll try it this way, okay?
Okay.
There's only 2 items to go.
Oh, no dramas, thank you.
Councillor O'Neill, we're just about to vote. Can you see the motion that I've moved and Councillor Ladbrook has seconded?
No, I can't.
Righto, we might have to read it again. Okay, number 1, council consider the preliminary queries that have been raised and come together for further discussion at a briefing and then formal consideration at a future meeting. Number 2, through councillors' diary arrangements, some possible dates to be identified for the elected members to hold a briefing for the workforce about council's vision for the proposed structure. So that's what we're voting on. The second is happy with that. Yep. We have asked if anyone wishes to speak. No one has wished to speak, so now we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Okay, moving on to L15, contribution to IQ-RAP election platform. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that council contribute $300 towards the election platform for IQ-RAP, RAP-RAP.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ladbrook. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak?
No,
Did councillors see the email for this particular item? Okay.
What?
Oh, yeah, okay.
It was talked about South West Queensland.
So IQ-RAP is a regional economic development initiative.
Queensland Roads Action Project.
Okay, that gives
This is
you.
the IQ-RAP, and
Yeah, that gives a bit of basis, thank you.
And there's a list of the councils who've been involved in the past.
Has everyone got enough information to make a decision? We're going to go to the vote. No one wishes to speak about it or against it. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Is there any further business, council? Oh yeah, okay. What number is that one?
13.2.
Quarry, about the operating hours?
Just the, Chris sent through some alternate wording regarding the hours.
Yep.
Okay, can everyone see that? Councillor O'Neill, can you see what's on the screen?
I don't believe so, no.
Righto. Well, we might have to read it out. So is this part of the motion or is this just part of the document?
So that's part of the conditions there, this one, you did the other ones in there where that's the intent, you're happy with the wording. I'm going to point to say that you're adopting it without reading them all, but then you just amended the conditions there.
How about we read 18 out, because that's the bit that's different, isn't it, Rob?
It is.
Just for the purpose of the people watching the videos.
Okay, so I'll read it out. Operating hours, general hours of operation are restricted between 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday to Friday and between 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturday, 5 p.m. on Saturdays. General hours of operation include heavy vehicle movements to and from the site, loading, scraping and pushing of extracted material and general maintenance and administration activities carried out on the site. Administrative activities carried out on the site. B, screening and crushing extracted material is restricted between between 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday to Saturday. Operations are not permitted on Sunday or public holidays. And 18D, the quarry owner-operator may apply to council to vary the hours of operation for a particular project where the extended operating hours are necessary in the opinion of the council, having considered the requirements and community benefits of the particular project and the duration of the additional impacts upon the local community. So, Councillor O'Neill, that's the change. And do we have a mover for this one?
No.
We'll go back. Just check.
Yep, so that's what we have to.
Yeah, no, she would be
Okay, well, I'd like to move that, what do I need to read?
the application.
Yeah, that the application for material change of use for for an extractive industry 5,000 tonnes to 100,000 tonne quarry on land situated on Sunnyside Road, Wonbilla North, and property described as Lot 3, is it 55? On V290 be approved subject to the listed development conditions and general advice, noting the amendments for clause 18 as read. Do we have a seconder for that motion?
So councillors, we will just print it with those conditions as listed.
Okay, so we have a seconder, Councillor Edwards. Any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak to it? We're going to go to the vote.
Speak to, I'll speak against it.
Oh, yeah, okay, please,
Mr Mayor, I believe, where are we, Kel, those amended ones? In yellow, please. I believe the 18B, screening and crushing of extracted material is restricted to between 8 AM to 5 PM Monday to Saturday. Won't only affect this particular business, it's going to have a repercussion on council's own quarry and our own quarry and our process at the quarry, and may affect our roadworks as well.
okay, well, I'll have it to speak as well. So in this case, I believe that 18D covers that they can apply for extra hours, but I do believe that we are approving a quarry in a rural residential area, which I'm concerned, and that I believe that this is our one chance to get it right. And 18D can allow operators to operate longer quite well. There is a lot of hours in that week from Monday to Friday. And this is a new quarry, this is not an existing quarry, and I believe we have to make decisions for the future interests of that local government area and the residents that live there. Okay, would anyone else wish to speak? Well, we're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
All those against? 8-1 if I'm called for division. Okay, is there any further business, councillors?
8-1.
8-1, and it was Councillor McMullen against it, if you would like to know, Councillor O'Neill. LC 16, okay.
Oh, that's the email.
Which one?
Oh, yeah, okay, gotcha. Title of that one?
On the screen.
Is it the email, Kel?
Yeah, it's a case putting on the screen.
We have a title number for it?
616.
Okay, LC 16, Glen Olive Road, Mount Howe. Do we have a mover? Councillor McMullen.
Mr Mayor, I'll move that Council 1 draft correspondence to the residents of Lying Downs and Glen Olive summarising the outcome of the recent deputations on the matter. 2, continue to progress the matter with a detailed report to be presented to an upcoming meeting of council that outlines the process and potential costs for all parties associated with establishing access for the residents of Lying Downs off Glen Olive Road.
We have a seconder. Councillor Taylor, any opposition? Does anyone wish to speak? We're going to go to the vote. All those in favour?
Yes.
9-0. Okay, is there any further business, councillors?
Surely we can fit in 3 minutes.
No, we do not need to do that.
Mr Mayor, just going back to the proposed dates for consultation meeting, will we just do that by email or what do we, okay.
Just through,
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, well on that note, no further business, councillors. We've shut the meeting at 9:57 PM and thank you for your attendance.